Hello and welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Ankita Mukherjee. Our big focus tonight, a couple from Andhra Pradesh who made international headlines this week for becoming the world's oldest parents. Now they've gone home with their twin girls today. 80-year-old Raja Rao and 74-year-old Mangayamma used IVF to finally have children after not being able to conceive for 57 years. Now, the birth of their twin girls was followed by reports that the elderly parents had been hospitalized in the intensive care unit of the same hospital. Well, today, doctors denied reports that Raja Rao had had a heart attack, saying he was hospitalized for an earlier lung infection. They said Mangayamma was kept in ICU to avoid post-surgery infection and that they were going to be discharged and would go home with their baby girls. But the very fact of an 80-year-old man and a 74-year-old woman becoming parents has led to a growing controversy, with some doctors even issuing a statement calling it a deplorable omission of ethics and morality and a misuse of assisted reproductive technologies. They are demanding, in fact, that IVF procedures should have an outer age limit of 45 years. We asked tonight, why is this still a grey area in our laws? And is IVF for the elderly a triumph of medical science or just plain unethical? Well, we're joined tonight by a range of stakeholders in this whole discussion. Joining us from Bengaluru tonight, Dr. Kamini Rao, Medical Director of Milan. She's also the chairperson of the drafting committee on the Assisted Reproductive Technologies Bill. Lalita Kumara Mangalam, former chairperson of the National Commission for Women, is with us. She's also a leader of the BJP and director of India Foundation. Joining us from Chennai tonight, we'll have Hari Ramasubramaniam, chief consultant of the Indian Surrogacy Law Centre. And here in the studio with me is Dr. Kaveri Banerjee, IVF expert and medical director of the Advanced Fertility Centre in New Delhi. Dr. Kamini Rao, let me begin with you. How do you see this case? Is this a triumph of medical science, or is this in fact a breach of ethics?
I think the latter would be true. I think it's a misuse of technology, and I think this has to be deplored. While I uphold the idea of a right to reproduce, but I think we must understand that there is a certain time period where women can go through pregnancy without any problems and comorbidities. Here is a woman who's 74 years old and a man who's 80 years old, and I'm given to understand that they've used the 80-year-old man's sperms and a donor egg to get the embryo. So you will see that a woman who is actually post-menopausal, uterus is not actually in a position to bear a child. So she has been kept in the hospital for 9 months in pregnancy and then delivered by cesarean section. So I would like to ask this question, that is this ethical for a woman who has to be a grandmother or a great grandmother to become a mother at this time, and at what cost?
All right, those are fair questions. Dr. Kaveri Banerjee, you know, we've heard the mother say that, you know, she's been childless for 57 years. She's been taunted by this, stigmatized by this right through her marriage. And for her, this is a moment of immense fulfillment. So does an individual's wishes, emotions also have to be taken into account in a situation like this? Or does the medical practitioner's thoughts have to be for these children who are now born to very aged parents?
I think it has to be mutually for all the stakeholders. We have the couple here, we have the children to be taken care of, and along with rights of parenthood, we also need to understand responsibilities of parenthood on the couple and responsibilities of doing a procedure of the doctors on this couple. So the Indian Council of Medical Research has put the outer limit of 45 years on a woman to be able to bear a child. It's a guideline, it's still not a law, and this is about 74. So it's many decades beyond what is expected of an ART practitioner. And the reason why these outer limits have been set is, one, that a woman's body during pregnancy, especially after 50-55, undergoes huge changes hypertension, diabetes. So she is at a threat for her life.
Right.
So is it really worthwhile is the question.
Okay, fair enough. Hari Ramasubramaniam, now some doctors have issued a statement calling it not just unprofessional, they say this is a deplorable omission of ethics, of morality, it's a misuse of the assisted reproductive technologies. They're saying that this guideline of, setting the upper age limit for an IVF process at 45 should actually be the mandated law. Now, why is this still a grey area?
Well, we are expecting legislation in this area for a pretty long time. We were, in fact, because the reason why it is we were was initially there was an ART bill that was proposed for more than about 10 years with regard to controlling surrogacy as well as IVF practice. Right now, what we are looking at is a surrogacy bill only, which has been introduced in 2018, and we are not sure whether we are going to ever see the day with regard to a bill which is going to regulate ART practices on the whole. So, like, what I feel is this, on this particular case, what I feel is it might be difficult for us to comment because they are within their legal rights to have a child.
Right.
Although ethically it is really a questionable act, which has been supported by the medical fraternity as such, is a question, because the doctor themselves, I believe, as per the reports, they want to disclaim that they don't know the age of the parents is what the reports say.
Well, actually what the doctors are saying is that aged parents or aged couples, elderly couples coming to them don't necessarily always have a fix on their age. There are those who don't have their birth certificates, there are those who perhaps say they're younger, so they're not actually admitting to the fact that they knew that the woman in question was perhaps as old as she was. They knew, they could tell that she was elderly, but perhaps not 74 years old. But to take up the point that you're making and take that across to Lalita Kumaramangalam, one of the criticisms, Ms. Kumaramangalam, has been the fact that the surrogacy bill that was cleared by the Lok Sabha but hasn't yet been passed by the Rajya Sabha has actually been silent on assisted reproductive technologies and IVF in particular. Would you say that this is a problem, that there are guidelines but no law, and perhaps a law needs to be in place?
Well, I agree that a law needs to be in place, and in some ways the the surrogacy bill and the assisted reproductive bill need to be sort of collated together. That has not been done. In the Rajya Sabha, however, in the Rajya Sabha the bill was not passed because of any of these reasons, but various other reasons that were brought up,
right,
more along the lines of the rights of people to have children, etc., etc. Now, coming back to this particular case, what I'd also like to include is not just the rights of individuals to become parents, but also the rights of children who are born to receive the care that they normally should. Both the doctors on this panel were very clear, of the children, of the babies. Both the doctors on this panel were unequivocally clear that there is an age up to which women should ideally bear children. A few years this way or that way, I'm sure nobody would make a big fuss about it. But at 74, can this lady really provide the care that these children need? One child is a hell of a job. I'm sorry, to use such a word. I'm a mother. I had 2 children when I was young. Bringing up a child is very difficult. It's not an easy job, both physically, mentally, economically, in various ways. I think we also as a country need to get rid of this obsession that every woman must be a mother. In any case, in this case, this lady's eggs were not used because she was probably postmenopausal, not probably, is postmenopausal. So this whole thing around having one's own baby, people who are doctors who are in the IVF, who practice this science, should also, I think, be much more careful in just going ahead and, assisting a couple to have children via medical procedures. And truthfully, if something happens to either one of these parents, the man is 80, even if he is extraordinarily healthy, how much longer do you think he is really going to be able to provide the child, both the children, the sort of father that they deserve?
The very hospital where his children were born, he was put in intensive care there. So he's clearly not healthy, and even if he didn't suffer a heart attack, as was reported in some places, he had a lung infection and he's been ailing.
Yeah, he's not in the peak of health, let me put it that way. Yeah. Also, we say that the children should be breastfed for the first 6 months. These kids don't have a chance of that. I mean, they don't have a hope and whatever of being breastfed. So it's not that they're not going to be brought up on healthy food, etc. But the fact is that as a baby, many of their rights have already been infringed by a decision that the doctor should not have made. So I would guess that it does border on the unethical, and I think that, I mean, I will certainly, and not I think, I will certainly recommend that the age of or maximum age for IVF to take place needs to be brought into the ART bill if it's not already there. I'm not an expert in that bill. I have done much more work on the surrogacy bill.
Right.
But yes, I do know that
Dr. Kamini Rao is the expert on it. She's the chairman of the drafting committee. Dr. Rao, wasn't 45 given as the sort of upper age limit in such cases?
Yes, upper age limit has been 45, but that is for own eggs. But for donor eggs, the guidelines have been silent about. But I would think that that's a very important thing that Madam Lalita Kumaramangalam has suggested, that for donor eggs, this has to be brought in. And we have to look at responsibly the rights of the babies and what have they received in the bargain. They did not want to be born to such old elderly couples, and why should they be left orphans very soon, even before they are 10 years old?
Now, Dr. Kabari Banerjee,
so
we of
don't
course
you
have
think
the
that
family.
the doctors should have that discipline?
Yes. So you're saying that this is, is this something that can be left up to individual medical practitioners then, Dr. Kabari Banerjee? Because, here you have the doctor
of course.
In question, arguing very strongly on behalf of this family, saying that this is a natural urge to procreate, this is a couple that has been childless for, over 5 decades, and if medical technology can allow it and can sort of create this miracle for them, then why not?
So, yes, briefly I would like to touch on the ART bill regarding your question as well, that in the ART bill it has mentioned that any ART procedure 45 years old is the upper limit. So, we are assuming that it's probably own eggs as well as the donor eggs. Now, that's again a big question. It's still not a law. In the West, for example, in Europe, things are governed by an act called the Human Fertilization and Embryology Act in the UK. And similarly, there are organizations all over the world that govern IVF practices in each country. We have various organizations in our country, but there is I would like to say, some areas little self-regulation and no regulation from outside bodies. So the ICMR bill, whichever has been proposed, now it's a huge debate. I personally would say maybe 50 can be the outer limit for a donor egg person, and this is open to debate. But yes, definitely the health of the lady on whom we are performing the procedure is priority, and secondly, as madam has just mentioned, the health and the future life of the children whom we are bringing into this world.
Right. I think one argument once again that has been given by this family is that it won't be the parents alone who will be looking after these children. There is an extended family, they're supportive, they're the ones who are guaranteeing that these children will be well looked after. Yes, Dr. Rao.
Why should they bring the babies into this world? If they can't look after the children, it is the responsibility of every parent. If you bring the child into this world, they have to. And if they can't breastfeed the child, then why bring this child and deprive this child right from birth? I mean, just for that cosmetic effect of being a mother, I think society should not also place so much of emphasis on being a complete woman only if you are a mother. I think that has to change. And I do not believe that you can only look at the parents and say that it is their right to procreate, but it is also the right of that unborn baby to get the best deal possible with the parents.
But Dr. Banerjee, I'd like you and
Otherwise, we are
Lalita
going
Kumar
to be in
Mangalam to
trouble.
come in on this, because at the end of the day, there are societal pressures, there are, couples do get stigmatized.
Yes.
And if indeed there is this kind of psychological pressure on them, then perhaps their better judgment is getting compromised by that. Lalita Kumar Mangalam, if you want to go first.
No, we do live in a society. I mean, whether we want to accept it.
If you don't mind, I'll be brutally frank here.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes.
So whether we would like to believe,
no, Dr. Banerjee, let Lalita Kumar
especially
Mangalam
today,
finish,
puts that much pressure on a woman to become a mother.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Now, at the age of say 30, 40, 25, even up to the age of say 50, yes, I would agree, and it's wrong at any age.
Right.
But at the age of 74, I really don't, I wouldn't buy that explanation.
Okay.
It's possibly more that the lady herself was desperate, or possibly the husband put pressure on his wife. Even that is not fair. But I am not talking merely about that. I am talking about the fact that the doctor also is at fault. He should have asked the questions that the other two doctors on this panel are asking. This is not as if, it's a blanket thing that's being done by everybody in this industry. It gives the industry a very bad name. That, doctors are only doing this for money. They don't really care about the future of the children or the health of the old parents. 74 is too old. If the doctor gives the excuse that I didn't know her age, well, it was his job to actually find out her age, or refuse to do it if he couldn't know her age. I mean, there have to be, yes, he should have jolly well found out about it.
I would
because
like to
she's
say
elderly,
here,
even if she doesn't look 74, she looks at least 60.
Okay, one at a time, please. Kaveri Banerjee,
well, I just want to say,
yes. Kaveri Banerjee, if you want to come in on this.
I just want to say that this lady was actually came to the doctor for adoption, and the doctor convinced her to go through IVF, and so therefore I think that's very wrong.
So you're saying that this is actually then a case of medical malpractice? Would you term it as that? That perhaps the lady got the wrong advice?
It's an unethical practice. Yes, the patients have got the wrong advice, and initially everyone thinks that this doctor is creating a Guinness Book of Records over here. But what happens at the expense of those elderly couple? And what about those children? Are we not worried about it? For a few newspaper headlines?
And the children.
Okay,
and the babies.
Kaveri Banerjee.
And what about the children?
So I would like to also point out a fact that yes, we have this couple who is probably gone in for treatment, perhaps adoption, wanting treatment. Here's a physician who is offered treatment. We also need to look a little beyond, like why did it come to this stage? What is happening in each and every home of our country, where becoming a mother, which is a very fulfilling enjoyment and joy by itself, is given such high priority that a woman, be whatever age, is mentally and psychologically forced to think that this is what she is supposed to do. So not only are doctors or our patients to be blamed for this,
yes,
the society also
at
has
large
to
putting that kind of
introspect
pressure.
and think as to what are we telling our girls.
H.E. Ramasubramaniam, how is that going to be addressed? Because, here you have an upper age for surrogacy, you have a law on adoption that states that, the joint age of couples can't go beyond a particular ceiling. Here there is only a guideline, a recommendation, there is nothing in the law as it were. But does it go beyond the law, and can the law really define these limits, or, is this a broader societal problem?
See, before I could start with your questions, I had the benefit of listening to all the co-panelists, and I really took offense that one of the speakers who said that the doctors were acting in this manner because of the money. I'm not a doctor myself, so I really hope there's no conflict of interest as such. It is not an issue about money, or it is not an issue about ethical aspects. Ethical aspects, yes, to a great extent, yes, but to what extent is the question? Because legally these people can have a child is the issue at the moment. Now, when it is legally permissible, how far can you expect a doctor to exercise his or her ethical discretion on this subject is another larger question. Now, is it guided by some kind of issues? Yes. Now, we find that the ICMR guidelines is there. We also have we also had an ART bill.
Yeah.
But presently we only have a surrogacy bill. I think they've abandoned it for the larger good because they were unable to do it. Now, these questions were supposed to be answered by this, by the ART bill. But the surrogacy bill is now trying to restrict itself only to the surrogacy practices as such. Now, when we are looking at this subject as a whole, there are two conflicting, it has already been discussed, but I would like to just reiterate this thing.
Yes.
That there are two conflicting interests, one of the parents, other
and
one of the child.
Yeah.
Child.
Yes, yeah. So one of the parents, other of the child, but what I'm trying to ascertain is, I have not read anywhere in the papers or according to the facts with what I see, I don't see a case where the lady was forced by the society or anybody along with her to have this child as is being portrayed right now. See, this right of having a child is her own right. The need of having a child is her own need, and probably it is her own discretion and her own choice to have made at this particular age. Now, we don't know, because I tell you this very specifically because I have had a case where a couple who in the late 60s wanted to take up a surrogacy arrangement. I was really curious why they wanted to take up a surrogacy arrangement in the late 60s. They had a daughter who was aged about 28 years, who had got married 1 month after her marriage.
Right.
She had some kind of heart attack or something like that, and she just collapsed, and she was she just passed away.
Right.
For that
reason,
a
lot of people have their own very unique cases and indeed their own reasons.
Yes.
We completely take your point about that. Lalita Kumara Mangalam, to get back to this instance, this might be an extreme case. It's not often that you hear of a 74-year-old woman becoming a mother. I mean, she has entered the record books already as the oldest parent. But, that's not really what this is about. There is a larger question to be asked over here about age limits. And then, what's the final word on that? Is that something that the state determines and sort of lays down the law? Or, is this something that we have to agree to collectively as a society?
Can I answer that
Ankita,
question?
I would say we have to agree to it collectively, because the moment the state steps in, even if they are taking the advice of a lot of people on board, all these stakeholders,
right,
there are bound to be differences of opinion, and it will become a minefield.
Right.
Something like what happened to the surrogacy bill,
yes,
which is just hanging fire, so to speak. But I think that especially the medical fraternity should come forward and give their very strong recommendations.
Yes.
Because of course everybody has the right to be a parent. But nature itself has ordained that there is an age where you can be a parent, and nature has its own reasons. Now, to say that medical science triumphs nature, sometimes I think, is it really a triumph, or is it just intervention to prove a point, for example?
And not necessarily a positive one.
Behind this,
Dr. Kamini Rao, quick last words to you. I'm completely out of time.
If the demand was
Yes.
exactly,
I think I just want to tell you that
but I
all
think there must be
stakeholders,
some rules laid
all
out.
stakeholders must be in. Yes, I want to say that as a person from the drafting committee and now the chair for the National Registry, I would urge the government to
Yes.
take the ART bill that has already been there and see that it is passed along with the surrogacy bill, so that many more such instances will not happen if this becomes a law. So the answer, my friends, is going to be having a law to regulate these practices where both the parents as well as the child will remain healthy even for years to come after the procedure has been done. So,
All right.
law will be the one thing that will take us forward.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us on this discussion tonight. Lots to think about and perhaps lots of takeaways from what is perhaps an extreme case, but one that's made us all think. That's it on this edition of Left, Right and Centre. Do stay tuned. There's more coming in.